Alexander Price had everything: a tech empire worth billions, a glass mansion overlooking the Pacific, and an obsession that had cost him $35 million over 10 years, finding the mysterious woman who'd saved his life in Morocco before vanishing into thin air. Meanwhile, his maid Maya Carter arrived each morning through the service entrance, dusted his furniture in silence, and disappeared each evening like a ghost, exactly as she'd planned. Because Maya Carter held a secret that could destroy them both. She was the woman Alexander had been searching for, hiding in plain sight as just another invisible servant in his perfect world. 6 months she'd managed this dangerous charade, but today, as she stood polishing the silver frame around a half-finished portrait of her younger self tucked behind his bookshelf, she realized the billionaire who never looked at his staff was finally starting to see her. And when he did, both their lives would explode. The morning sun cast long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Alexander Price's Pacific mansion, painting golden streaks across marble floors that Maya Carter had polished to perfection just an hour earlier. Alexander swept through the grand foyer at exactly 7:15, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the stone with the precision of a metronome. His eyes remained fixed on his phone screen, scrolling through overnight market reports from Tokyo and London, while his free hand clutched a titanium travel mug filled with Ethiopian single-origin coffee that cost more per pound than most people earned in a day. Maya stood motionless on the grand staircase, dust cloth in hand, making herself as small as possible against the banister. She had learned in her 6 months working for the Price household that the key to survival was invisibility. Alexander passed within 3 feet of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something French and understated that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He didn't acknowledge her presence. He never did. To him, she was no different from the furniture she cleaned, the paintings she dusted, or the floors she waxed to mirror brightness. The cloth moved in practiced circles across the mahogany railing, her movements deliberate and quiet. Maya had perfected the art of silence, of existing in spaces without disturbing them. Her uniform was always pressed, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, her presence marked only by the faint scent of lavender polish that lingered in rooms after she left. She had trained herself to breathe quietly, to move with purpose but without sound, to be exactly what was expected: efficient, thorough, and completely forgettable. But Maya noticed everything. She noticed how Alexander had started pacing during his phone calls lately, wearing paths in the Persian rugs in his study. She noticed the way his jaw clenched when certain names came up in conversation, how his fingers drummed against surfaces when he thought no one was watching. Most of all, she noticed how he would sometimes stop mid-stride and stare out at the Pacific Ocean, his gaze unfocused, as if searching for something beyond the horizon that he had lost long ago. The kitchen buzzed with quiet activity as Maya entered to collect cleaning supplies. Sarah, the head housekeeper who had been with the family for 15 years, was gossiping with James, the driver, over morning coffee. They fell silent when Maya approached, but she caught the tail end of their conversation, something about a mystery woman and private investigators. "Morning, Maya," Sarah said, her tone neutral but not unkind. Sarah was the type who kept professional distance from everyone, especially the newer staff. "Good morning," Maya replied softly, reaching for the silver polish under the sink. James leaned against the counter, unable to resist continuing his story. "I'm telling you, Sarah, I drove him to meet with that investigator again last week. Same one he's been using for years. Must have spent millions by now. That's none of our business," Sarah said sharply, but her eyes betrayed her curiosity. 10 years, James continued, lowering his voice. 10 years he's been looking for someone. You'd think after all that time and money, he'd either find them or give up. Maya kept her face carefully neutral as she arranged her supplies in the carry basket. 10 years. Millions of dollars. A ghost from his past that haunted him enough to pour resources into an endless search. She didn't need to wonder who he was looking for. She already knew. That evening, the mansion transformed for Alexander's company anniversary dinner. Crystal chandeliers blazed with light, and the dining room table groaned under the weight of a 7-course meal prepared by a Michelin-starred chef brought in for the occasion. Maya moved through the crowd of investors and board members like a shadow, refilling champagne glasses and collecting empty plates with practiced efficiency. Alexander stood at the head of the table, raising his glass for a toast. His smile was perfect, his words polished, but Maya saw the way his eyes kept drifting to the door whenever it opened. She watched him scan each new arrival, hope flickering briefly before disappointment settled back into the lines around his eyes. Even surrounded by people celebrating his success, he seemed utterly alone. Remarkable quarter, Alexander, boomed Harrison Wells, a senior investor with silver hair and a bourbon-roughened voice. The Singapore expansion alone will net us $40 million. Thank you, Harrison, Alexander replied, but his attention had already drifted. A server had just entered through the service door, and for a moment, just a moment, Alexander's breath caught. But it was just another caterer, another stranger, another disappointment. Maya collected empty glasses from a side table, moving closer to where Alexander stood. As she reached past him for a discarded napkin, their eyes met briefly. She expected him to look through her as always, but something made him pause. His gaze lingered on her face, a slight furrow appearing between his brows as if he was trying to remember something just out of reach. "Thank you," he said quietly, the words seemingly surprising him as much as they surprised her. Maya nodded, dropping her eyes immediately. "Of course, Mr. Price." She retreated to the kitchen, her heart beating faster than it should. That look, that moment of almost recognition, it was dangerous. She had worked too hard to build this identity, this invisible life, to let it crumble. Now, the next morning, Maya was dusting Alexander's private study when she noticed it, a canvas partially hidden behind a bookshelf, covered with a white cloth. She shouldn't look. She knew better than to pry into her employer's personal items. But something compelled her to lift the corner of the fabric. The painting took her breath away. It was unfinished, but the subject was clear, a young black woman, with intelligent eyes and a slight smile that suggested secrets. The artist had captured something ineffable in her expression, a mixture of strength and vulnerability that made the portrait feel alive. Maya's hand trembled as she lowered the cloth. She knew that face. She saw it every morning in the mirror, though younger, softer, before the world had taught her to hide. She quickly returned to her dusting, but her mind raced. Why did he have this painting? How much did he remember? And more importantly, how much longer could she maintain this charade? The week progressed with unusual tension. A storm system moved in from the Pacific, bringing sheets of rain that lashed against the windows. Maya stayed late one evening to help clean up after a board meeting that had run long. The other staff had gone home, leaving her alone in the massive house with Alexander. She was wiping down the conference table when she heard footsteps behind her. Alexander stood in the doorway, looking tired and older than his 48 years. "You don't have to stay," he said. "The storm's getting worse." "Almost finished, Mr. Price," Maya replied, not looking up from her work that he moved into the room, pouring himself a scotch from the sidebar. "How long have you worked here?" "6 months. "Yes, sir." "Do you like it?" The question seemed to surprise him, as if he hadn't meant to ask it. Maya paused in her cleaning. "It's good work." "Steady." "That's not what I asked." She finally looked at him, choosing her words carefully. "I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Price. Not everyone would hire someone with gaps in their employment history." Something flickered in his eyes. "Everyone deserves a second chance." The rain pounded harder against the windows. Maya returned to her cleaning, but she could feel him watching her. The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken questions and carefully guarded secrets. "Thank you for staying late," he said finally. "Drive safely." As Maya gathered her things to leave, she pulled out her phone in the pantry, checking to make sure she was alone. She dialed a number from memory. "It's me," she whispered. "No, everything's fine. But I don't know. He's noticing things." The voice on the other end spoke urgently, but Maya cut them off. "I told you, it's not time yet. I'll know when it is. Just be ready." She ended the call quickly, slipping the phone back into her pocket. When she turned, she nearly jumped. Alexander's assistant, Patricia, stood in the doorway. "Working late?" Patricia asked, her tone neutral but her eyes suspicious. "The storm," Maya said simply. "Didn't want to leave a mess for the morning." Patricia nodded slowly, but Maya could tell she wasn't entirely convinced. As Maya left through the service entrance, she wondered how many more close calls she could afford. The next day, while delivering fresh laundry to Alexander's bedroom suite, Maya noticed something unusual. His desk drawer was locked. It always was, but a folder had slipped partially out, caught in the mechanism. She could see the edge of a logo, elegant and professional. Whitmore Investigations, Discreet International Services. She carefully pushed the folder back in, making sure not to disturb anything else. But she had seen enough. Whitmore was one of the best in the business, known for finding people who didn't want to be found. The kind of firm that could trace shadows and whispers across continents. That night, as Maya prepared to leave, she passed by Alexander's study. The door was ajar, and she could see him on the balcony beyond, a silhouette against the stormy sky. He held a whiskey glass in one hand. His other hand braced against the railing as if it was the only thing keeping him upright. The wind carried his voice to her, just barely audible over the rain. He was murmuring something, the same word over and over like a prayer or a penance. A name, Amara. Maya's breath caught. She forced herself to keep walking, to not react, to maintain the facade she had built so carefully. But her eyes betrayed her, glistening with tears she couldn't afford to shed. Not here. Not now. Not when she had come so far and hidden so well. As she drove home through the storm-darkened streets, Maya knew that the careful balance she had maintained for 6 months was beginning to crack. Alexander's search was intensifying, his awareness sharpening. The invisible maid was becoming visible, and visibility meant danger, not just for her, but for him too. Marcus Whitmore sat across from Alexander in the study, spreading files across the coffee table like a dealer laying out cards. Each folder represented a lead, a possibility, a hope that had ultimately led nowhere. The investigator's face was weathered from years of international work, his eyes sharp despite the early morning hour. We've expanded the search parameters, Marcus said, his British accent crisp and professional. My teams have covered Brazil, Sao Paulo, and Rio primarily. We've had people in Paris checking the expatriate communities, and we've just wrapped up operations in Nairobi. Alexander leaned forward, studying the reports with intensity that bordered on desperation. $35 million, Marcus. I've spent $35 million over the years. She has to be out there. People who want to disappear can be remarkably good at it, Marcus replied carefully. Especially if they have help. She didn't want to disappear, Alexander said firmly. Something made her. Someone maybe. Meanwhile, across the city in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Inglewood, Maya stood over her kitchen sink, watching flames consume the last of her old letters. The paper curled and blackened, taking with it words from another life, another identity. The smoke alarm chirped once before she disabled it with practiced efficiency. When the last ember died, she swept the ashes into a plastic bag, tied it tight, and placed it in the trash. From her bedroom closet, she retrieved a small lockbox, checking its contents one more time before securing it behind a panel she had installed herself. Inside were passports with different names, cash in various currencies, and a single photograph she couldn't bring herself to burn. Back at the mansion. The next morning, Maya noticed Alexander seemed more agitated than usual. He had 3 phones on his desk, each one set to a different time zone. His breakfast sat untouched while he fired off emails and barked orders to his assistant about clearing his schedule for an emergency trip. The charity gala, Patricia reminded him. You're the keynote speaker. Cancel it, Alexander said without looking up. You can't cancel, sir. It's for the children's hospital. The press would, fine, reschedule my flights for after the gala. That evening, Maya watched the gala coverage from her apartment, curled on her second-hand couch with a cup of tea. The local news showed Alexander at the podium, handsome in his tuxedo, delivering a speech about corporate responsibility and giving back to the community. But Maya saw what the cameras missed. The way his eyes swept the crowd constantly, the slight pause when a woman's laugh rang out from the back of the ballroom. The news anchor's voice droned on about the millions raised for the hospital, but Maya wasn't listening anymore. She was watching Alexander's face when someone called his name off camera. The hope that flashed across his features, followed immediately by disappointment when he turned to find it was just another donor wanting to shake his hand. 2 days later. Maya was preparing breakfast in the mansion's kitchen when Marcus Whitmore arrived with urgent news. She could hear them talking in the dining room. Alexander's voice rising with excitement. This was taken in Chicago 5 years ago, Marcus was saying. Security footage from a hotel lobby. Look at the scarf she's wearing. Maya's hand stilled. On the orange, she was sectioning. She forced herself to continue, to maintain the rhythm of her work, even as her heart raced. That's it. Alexander's voice was breathless. That's the scarf I gave her in Morocco. It has to be her. The trail goes cold after Chicago, Marcus warned. But we're following up on employment records, apartment rentals. If she was there, we'll find where she went next. Maya began humming softly as she arranged fruit on a plate, an unconscious habit when her nerves were frayed. The melody was low, something her grandmother used to sing when Maya was young, before everything became complicated. She didn't realize Alexander had entered the kitchen until she heard his sharp intake of breath. That song, he said. What is that song? Maya looked up, forcing confusion onto her face. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Price. Was I being too loud? No, the song. Where did you learn it? She shrugged, returning her attention to the fruit arrangement. Just something my mother used to sing. Old spiritual, I think. Would you like your usual coffee? Alexander stared at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. Yes, thank you. As she prepared his coffee, 2 sugars, no? Cream, exactly how he liked it. Maya could feel his eyes on her. She had made a mistake. The humming had been careless, too comfortable. She needed to be more careful. That night, nature seemed to mirror the tension in the house. A massive storm rolled in from the Pacific, knocking out power throughout the neighborhood. Maya was gathering candles from the supply closet when the lights went out, plunging the mansion into darkness. Maya, Alexander's voice called from the living room. Are you still here? Yes, Mr. Price. I have candles. She made her way carefully through the darkness, guided by flashes of lightning through the windows. Alexander was standing by the fireplace, his phone flashlight creating a small pool of light. Here, she said, handing him several candles and a lighter. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and in the brief illumination of the lighter's flame, their faces were inches apart. Alexander's eyes searched hers, and for a moment, Maya forgot to breathe. There was something in his gaze, not quite recognition, but a deep, unsettling familiarity. Have we met before? He asked suddenly. Before you came to work here? No, sir, Maya said, stepping back. I would remember. Lightning flashed again, throwing his face into sharp relief. Would you? Before she could answer, his phone rang. Marcus Whitmore's name appeared on the screen. I have to take this, Alexander said, but his eyes lingered on her for another moment before he answered. Maya busied herself lighting candles throughout the room, but she could hear his side of the conversation. When? You're certain? No, I'll fly out myself. Book the first flight after the storm passes. After he hung up, Alexander moved to the window, watching the storm rage over the ocean. Maya gathered her things to leave, but his voice stopped her. Do you believe in fate, Maya? The question caught her off guard. I believe things happen. For a reason, Mr. Price. I'm looking for someone, he said, still facing the window. I've been looking for years. Sometimes I think I'm crazy, spending all this money, all this time, searching for a ghost. Must be someone important, Maya said carefully. She saved my life. His voice was quiet, almost lost in the sound of rain against glass. Years ago in Morocco, everything I have, everything I've built, I owe it to her. And she just vanished. Maya's throat tightened. Maybe she had her reasons. That's what I tell myself. But I need to know she's okay. I need to thank her. He trailed off, then laughed bitterly. I sound insane, don't I? Talking to my maid about this. You sound like someone who doesn't forget the people who matter, Maya said softly. Alexander turned to look at her then, and in the candlelight, she could see tears in his eyes. I owe her everything. The next morning, Maya received a call during her break. She walked to the far end of the garden, making sure she was alone before answering. He's getting too close. The voice on the other end said urgently. The Chicago lead, they're going to trace it back. You need to leave. Not yet, Maya said firmly. This isn't a game. If Victor finds out where you are, then I'll leave before he figures it out, Maya interrupted. But not yet. There's something I need to do first. You're playing with fire. I've been burned before. I survived. She ended the call, and turned to find Alexander's friend Daniel walking through the garden. He was a regular visitor, one of the few people Alexander seemed to trust completely. "Beautiful morning," Daniel said pleasantly, but his eyes were curious. "I don't think we've properly met. I'm Daniel Morrison." "Maya Carter," she replied, shaking his offered hand. "Alexander speaks highly of you. Says you're the best housekeeper he's had." Maya doubted Alexander had said any such thing, but she smiled politely. "He's a good employer." Daniel studied her for a moment. "You know, it's strange. You remind me of someone, but I can't place who." "I have one of those faces," Maya said. Lightly, but inside, alarm bells were ringing. Daniel had been in Morocco. Daniel had been there that night. That evening, over scotch in the study, Alexander confided in Daniel about his continued search. "You need to let this go," Daniel said gently. "It's been 10 years, Alex. You're chasing a ghost." "She's not dead," Alexander said firmly. "I would know if she was dead." "How could you possibly know that?" Alexander pulled out a weathered photograph from his desk drawer. It was water-stained and creased, but the image was still visible, a young black woman, with bright eyes and a cautious smile, standing on a rooftop with the Moroccan sunset behind her. "Because someone like her doesn't just die," Alexander said. "She survives. She adapts. She disappears if she has to, but she survives." Daniel studied the photograph, then glanced toward the door where Maya had just passed by with fresh towels. A strange expression crossed his face, but he said nothing. Later that night, Maya stood in her apartment, looking at her calendar. Alexander's flight was booked for next week, following another false lead that Marcus had manufactured to keep him busy. She circled the date in red ink. It would be her last day. She would disappear again, become someone new, somewhere else. But, as she prepared for bed, she found herself thinking about the pain in Alexander's voice when he talked about his search. $35 million spent trying to find her. 10 years of his life devoted to a ghost. All because she had saved him once and then vanished without explanation. She retrieved the lockbox from its hiding place and pulled out the photograph she couldn't burn. It was the twin to the one Alexander had shown Daniel, the same moment captured from a different angle. She had taken it with his phone, just hours before everything went wrong, before the men with guns came, before she had to make the choice. That would haunt them both. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she would leave. But even as she made the decision, she knew she was lying to herself. Something was keeping her here, something more than just the need to hide. Maybe it was the way. He looked at the ocean, searching for her. Maybe it was the painting hidden in his study, unfinished like everything between them. Or maybe it was simply that after 10 years of running, she was finally tired of being invisible to the one person who had never stopped seeing her, even when she wasn't there. The morning after Alexander's scheduled departure was supposed to bring Maya relief. She had already composed her resignation letter, citing a fictional family emergency that would require her immediate relocation. But at 6:30 that morning, as she arrived at the mansion through the service entrance, she found Alexander's Bentley still in the driveway and heard his voice booming from the study. "I don't care what the board thinks, Patricia. Cancel the Chicago trip. We're having an emergency meeting this afternoon, and I need to be here." Maya's stomach dropped. She retreated to the kitchen where Sarah was reviewing the week's schedule, with unusual tension in her shoulders. "Change of plans," Sarah announced to the assembled staff. "Mr. Price isn't traveling after all. We're hosting the Children's Hospital fundraiser here tomorrow night, instead of at the hotel. 200 guests, full catering, and the board will be arriving early for a private meeting." Maya nodded along with the others, but her mind raced. She couldn't leave now, not with such a major event happening. It would raise too many questions, draw too much attention. She was trapped for at least another few days. The mansion transformed overnight into a wonderland for the charity event. Crystal lights were strung through the gardens, a string quartet set up on the terrace, and round tables draped in white. Linens filled the ballroom. Maya worked alongside the rest of the staff, arranging centerpieces and polishing silverware until it gleamed. The children arrived first, patients from the hospital brought in for a special preview before the donors showed up. Maya was assigned to help supervise them in the conservatory, where face painters and balloon artists had been hired to entertain. She knelt beside a little girl in a wheelchair, helping her choose which butterfly design she wanted painted on her cheek. "You're pretty," the girl said suddenly, studying Maya with the unfiltered honesty of childhood. Are you a princess? Maya laughed softly. No, sweetheart. I just work here. Mr. Price must like you then. He only hires nice people. What makes you think Mr. Price is nice? Maya asked, curious about the child's perception. He visits us at the hospital sometimes. He brings toys and reads stories. He's sad though. You can tell when grown-ups are sad, even when they smile. From across the room, Alexander watched the interaction. He had come to check on the children before the donors arrived, but found himself frozen by the sight of Maya's gentle way with the little girl. There was something natural about how she interacted with the children, a warmth he hadn't seen before. When she laughed at something the child said, her whole face transformed, becoming younger, more open. She's wonderful with them, Patricia noted, appearing at his elbow with an iPad full of schedules. Yes, Alexander agreed quietly. She is. As the evening progressed and wealthy donors filled the mansion, Maya returned to her usual role, moving invisibly through the crowd with trays of champagne. She had perfected the art of being unseen, but tonight Alexander seemed to track her movements, his eyes finding her in the crowd repeatedly. During a lull in the festivities, he approached her as she was arranging fresh glasses at the bar station. Maya, I wanted to thank you for today. With the children, you went above and beyond. It was my pleasure, Mr. Price. They're sweet kids. He hesitated, then asked, do you have children of your own? No, sir. But you'd like them? Someday. It was such a personal question, so unexpected from a man who had barely acknowledged her existence for 6 months. Maya chose her words carefully. I've moved around a lot, Mr. Price. It wouldn't have been fair to a child. Moved around. His interest sharpened. Where have you lived? Here and there. California mostly, but I spent some time on the East Coast. She kept her answers vague, truthful enough to avoid outright lies, but not specific enough to trace. Ever been abroad? Maya's pulse quickened. No, sir. Never had the opportunity. He studied her face intently, and she forced herself to meet his gaze with bland innocence. After a moment, he nodded and turned away, but she caught him glancing back at her twice before disappearing into the crowd of donors. Later that evening, Maya was clearing plates from the garden terrace when she noticed something catching the light on her wrist. The silver bracelet. She had worn it without thinking, hidden usually under her uniform sleeves, but the evening's activities had caused her sleeve to ride up. Excuse me. Maya turned to find Eleanor Hartley, one of the newer housekeepers, staring at her wrist with undisguised interest. Eleanor had started 3 weeks ago, and there was something sharp and calculating about her that made Maya uneasy. That's a beautiful bracelet, Eleanor said, her smile not reaching her eyes. It looks expensive. It's not, Maya said quickly, pulling her sleeve down. Just something from a flea market. Really? Because it looks exactly like the Moroccan silver work they sell in those high-end boutiques downtown. My sister has one that cost $800. Then I got very lucky at the flea market, Maya said coolly, moving past Eleanor with her tray. But Eleanor wasn't done. Throughout the rest of the evening, Maya caught her staring, whispering to James the driver, and once, taking a photo with her phone when she thought Maya wasn't looking. The next morning brought a crisis that had nothing to do with Maya's secrets. The boardroom erupted in shouting as Richard Steinberg, one of Alexander's oldest board members, slammed his fist on the table. You've lost focus, Alexander. $35 million of your personal funds spent on some wild goose chase, and now you're making erratic business decisions. The Singapore expansion is hemorrhaging money because you're too distracted to oversee it properly. Maya was in the adjacent room, supposedly cleaning but able to hear every word through the thin walls. My personal finances are not board business, Alexander said, his voice dangerously quiet. They are when they affect your judgment, Richard shot back. Victor Hale is circling our contracts like a vulture, and you're too busy playing detective to notice. He's already poached 3 of our suppliers. Victor Hale is a parasite, Alexander said dismissively. A parasite who's about to eat your company alive while you chase ghosts. The meeting ended with slammed doors and angry footsteps. Maya retreated quickly, but not before she heard Richard on his phone in the hallway. Victor? It's Richard. You were right. He's vulnerable. That name sent ice through Maya's veins. Victor Hale. The reason she had run the reason she had hidden. If Victor was involved now, if he was getting close to Alexander's business, then staying was even more dangerous than she had thought. In the kitchen that afternoon, Maya was preparing Alexander's lunch when a delivery arrived. Marcus Whitmore himself, rather than sending an assistant. He insisted on hand-delivering a package to Alexander personally. As Maya carried the tray to the study, she could hear their conversation through the door. She was in California, Marcus was saying. We have confirmation. A woman matching her description worked at a hospital in Sacramento 5 years ago. Then she vanished again. Sacramento, Alexander repeated. That's only a few hours from here. The trail goes cold after that. But Alexander, if she was that close and didn't contact you, maybe she couldn't. Maybe she was in trouble. Maya's hands trembled as she knocked on the door. Both men fell silent as she entered with the lunch tray. Thank you, Maya, Alexander said absently. His attention on the files spread across his desk. As she set down the tray, she glimpsed a photograph. Among the papers, a blurry security camera image of a woman in scrubs. The resolution was too poor to make out features clearly, but the height and build were right. It could have been her. It could have been anyone. Will there be anything else, Mr. Price? No, thank you. But as she reached the door, Marcus spoke. Up. Actually, Miss Carter, Maya supplied. Miss Carter, you've worked here 6 months, correct? You must know the household routines well. Have you noticed anyone unusual around the property? Any strange phone calls or deliveries? Maya kept her expression neutral. No, sir. Nothing unusual. Marcus studied her for a moment, then nodded. Thank you. That evening, there was a minor accident in the kitchen. Thomas, one of the new servers, dropped a tray of glasses just as Alexander was passing through. The crash was tremendous, shards flying everywhere. Without thinking, Maya threw herself between Alexander and the explosion of glass, her body shielding his. Are you hurt? Alexander asked, his hands on her shoulders, checking for injuries. I'm fine, Maya said, though she could feel a sting on her palm where a shard had caught her. You're bleeding. He took her hand, examining the cut with surprising gentleness. Come on, let's get this cleaned up. He led her to the small first aid station off the kitchen, ignoring her protests that she could handle it herself. As he cleaned the wound with careful precision, Maya found herself studying his face up close. There were more lines than there had been 10 years ago, silver threading through his dark hair, but his concentration was the same intense focus she remembered. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly, applying antibiotic ointment. Shield me like that. Instinct, Maya said. Most people's instinct is to protect themselves. I'm not most people. He looked up at her then, their faces close in the small space. No, you're not, are you? The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Then Alexander's phone rang, breaking the spell. It was Marcus again, with news of another lead, another possibility. Alexander stepped away to take the call, and Maya used the opportunity to escape. In the hallway, she nearly collided with Eleanor, who had been watching from the doorway. That was quite heroic, Eleanor said, her tone mocking. Almost like you've done it before. It was just reflexes, Maya said firmly. Interesting reflexes. For a maid. Eleanor's smile was sharp. You know, I've been asking around about you. Funny thing, nobody seems to know where you worked before here. Your references check out, but the people are hard to track down. Almost like they don't really exist. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. Just observing. Mr. Price seems quite taken with you suddenly. Must be nice. Having a billionaire's attention. Maya stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Be very careful, Eleanor. You don't know what you're playing with. Is that a threat? It's advice. Leave this alone. But Eleanor's eyes glittered with malicious interest. Or what? You'll make me disappear like your employment history. That night, Maya made a decision. She called her contact from the burner phone in her car. I need an exit strategy. Soon. There's another employee here who's getting suspicious, and Victor Hale is circling Alexander's business. Finally seeing sense. I can have new documents ready in 48 hours. Make it 24. Something's about to break here. I can feel it. The next morning, Marcus arrived with urgent news. He had a meeting with someone who claimed to have information about the woman Alexander was seeking. The meeting was set for that afternoon at a cafe in Santa Monica. This could be it. Alexander told Patricia, canceling his afternoon meetings. This could finally be her. Maya watched him leave with a mixture of relief and inexplicable sadness. He was chasing another ghost, another false lead. But at least it would keep him busy while she prepared her exit. But she couldn't resist one last look. She drove to Santa Monica, parking across from the cafe where the meeting was supposed to take place. She watched Alexander arrive, hope evident in every line of his body. She watched him wait, and she watched his face crumble when a woman arrived, clearly a fraud, someone who had heard about the reward money and thought she could con a desperate billionaire. The woman lasted less than 5 minutes before Alexander stood and walked out, his shoulders rigid with disappointment and anger. Maya's heart ached for him, but she forced herself to drive away. She had her own escape to plan. The confrontation came sooner than Maya expected. She arrived at work the next morning to find Alexander waiting in the kitchen, the silver bracelet in his hand. Eleanor stood nearby, trying and failing to hide a triumphant smirk. Maya, Alexander's voice was carefully controlled. Eleanor brought something interesting to my attention. This bracelet. She says she saw you wearing it yesterday. Maya kept her expression neutral even as her mind raced. Yes, sir. It's mine. The interesting thing is, Alexander continued, turning the bracelet over in his hands, I bought one exactly like this in Morocco, in a small shop in the Medina. The owner said he only made 3 of this particular design. It's a common style, Mr. Price. You can find similar pieces at flea markets. His eyes were intent on her face. That's what you told Eleanor. But this inscription here, he pointed to tiny Arabic script on the inner band, translates to, until we meet again. The shopkeeper told me he only inscribed that phrase once, at my request. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Eleanor watched with barely concealed glee while Sarah and the other staff members exchanged confused glances. Where did you really get this bracelet, Maya? Maya lifted her chin, meeting his gaze directly. Someone gave it to me. A long time ago. Who? Someone who said they'd find me again. The truth, even if he didn't realize it. Alexander stepped closer, his voice dropping. What aren't you telling me? Before Maya could answer, his phone rang. Marcus Whitmore's name flashed on the screen. Alexander answered impatiently. Not now, Marcus, what? You're sure? She's here? In Los Angeles. Maya's blood ran cold as Alexander's eyes snapped back to her face, now filled with a different kind of intensity. I'll call you back, he told Marcus, ending the call without looking away from Maya. Everyone out. Now. The kitchen emptied quickly, though Eleanor lingered until Alexander's sharp look sent her scurrying. When they were alone, Alexander set the bracelet on the counter between them. Tell me about Morocco. I've never been to Morocco, Mr. Price. Tell me about the night on the rooftop. The broken radio. The men with guns. Maya's breath caught. She forced herself to remain still, to give nothing away. I don't know what you're talking about. There was an alley, Alexander continued, moving closer. Someone knew about the seawall ladder. Someone led me to safety while bullets flew overhead. Someone who disappeared into the night and never looked back. Mr. Price, it was you, wasn't it? His voice was barely a whisper now. You're Amara. The name hung in the air between them like a challenge. Maya held his gaze for a long moment, then deliberately looked away. My name is Maya Carter. I'm your housekeeper. Nothing more. Don't lie to me. The words exploded from him, months of frustration and years of searching compressed into that single demand. The humming, the bracelet, the way you threw yourself between me and those glasses yesterday. You did the same thing in Morocco, didn't you? Put yourself between me and danger. You're seeing what you want to see, then explain this. He pulled out his phone, showing her a photo from Marcus's files. It was her, 5 years younger, caught on security footage in Chicago. Same height, same build, same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. Maya studied the photo as if seeing it for the first time. That could be anyone. Stop it. His voice cracked. Just stop. I've spent 10 years looking for you. 10 years, Maya. Or Amara. Or whatever your real name is. $35 million. Do you know what that money meant? It wasn't just about finding you. Every investigator I hired, every lead they followed, all led back to one thing. Victor Hale. Maya couldn't help her involuntary flinch at that name. You know him, Alexander said, triumph and horror mixing in his voice. You're running from him. That's why you disappeared. That's why you've been hiding. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. He slammed his hand on the counter, making them both jump. 10 years, Maya. I've spent 10 years wondering if you were dead, if you were hurt, if you hated me for some reason I couldn't understand. And all this time you've been here, in my house, watching me search for you. The pain in his voice broke. Something in Maya. She sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted by the weight of her deception. 6 months, she said quietly. I've only been here 6 months. But you're her. You're Amara. She looked up at him, and for the first time since she'd arrived at his house, she let him really see her. Not the maid, not the invisible servant, but the woman who had saved his life in Morocco. Amara was a cover name, she admitted. One of many I've used over the years. Alexander pulled out a chair and sat across from her, his legs seemingly unable to hold him anymore. Why? Why hide from me? I wasn't hiding from you. I was hiding from what finding me would bring to your door. Victor, she nodded. I was a witness. Federal case. International fraud and human trafficking ring that used shipping companies to move more than just cargo. Victor's company was central to it all, and one of his subsidiaries had contracts with your suppliers. The Morocco deal, Alexander breathed. That's why we were both there. You were there to sign contracts. I was there to document the other. Things being moved through those same channels. When the operation went sideways, when Victor's men realized there was a federal witness in play, they came for you. They came for anyone who might have seen something. You were collateral damage, in the wrong place at the wrong time. I couldn't let them kill an innocent man. So you saved me, led me to safety, and then vanished. The FBI handlers made it clear anyone I had contact with would become a target. Victor doesn't leave loose ends. Ever. Alexander was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, the $35 million I spent searching for you. You knew about it? Maya's voice was barely audible. I knew. And you just let me. He stopped, understanding dawning on his face. The searches, the investigations, they were drawing Victor's attention away from you. Every time you hired someone to look for Amara, Victor's people followed the same leads. As long as they were chasing shadows in Brazil or Paris or Nairobi, they weren't looking for a maid in Los Angeles. You used me. I survived, Maya corrected. We both did. That's what mattered. They sat in silence for a moment before Alexander asked, why come here? Why work in my house? I didn't plan it. I've been moving every few months for years, taking whatever work I could find that didn't require too many questions. When I saw your household was hiring, when I realized your head housekeeper valued discretion over detailed background checks, it seemed safe. You never really looked at the staff. I thought I could hide in plain sight. But I did start looking. Yes. And that's when I knew I had to leave. Alexander reached for the bracelet, turning it over in his hands. You kept it. All these years, you kept it. A moment of weakness, Maya admitted. I should have thrown it away. But you didn't. No. Eleanor's voice suddenly rang out from the hallway. Mr. Price? Mr. Whitmore is here. He says it's urgent. Marcus burst through the kitchen door, his usually composed face flushed with excitement. Alexander, I've found her. The woman from Morocco. She's been. He stopped short, seeing Maya. His eyes widened in recognition. My God. Hello, Marcus, Maya said quietly. You look well. You know him? Alexander asked, looking between them. We met once, Marcus said slowly. Years ago. In Tangier. The night before you were attacked. She was asking questions about shipping manifests at the Port Authority. I was investigating insurance fraud for Lloyd's of London. You didn't recognize her? All this time. Marcus shook his head. She looked different then. Hair, clothes, the way she carried herself. She was playing a different character entirely. Besides, I was told she died that night. Federal handlers confirmed it. Said she was killed in the crossfire. The handlers lied, Maya said. It was the only way to keep me safe. Eleanor appeared in the doorway again, this time with her phone raised. This is fascinating, but I think Mr. Hale would be very interested to hear about this reunion. Everyone froze. Eleanor's smile was vicious as she waved her phone, showing a recording app actively running. Eleanor. Alexander's voice was deadly quiet. What have you done? Secured my future, she replied. Victor Hale is offering $2 million for information about the federal witness who destroyed his European operations. I'd say I've earned it, wouldn't you? Maya moved faster than anyone expected. She lunged for the phone, but Eleanor danced back, laughing. Too late. It's already uploaded. To the cloud. Even if you delete this copy, I have backups. Mr. Hale will have everything within the hour. You don't know what you've done, Maya said, her voice hollow. You've signed all our death warrants. Dramatic much? I've made us all rich. Mr. Hale just wants to talk. Victor Hale doesn't talk, Marcus said grimly. He eliminates problems. Alexander pulled out his phone. We need to call the FBI. Now. No, Maya said sharply. The moment this becomes official, Victor disappears. He has contacts everywhere. We need. The lights went out. In the darkness, they heard the sound of breaking glass from the front of the house. Then footsteps. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. They're already here, Maya whispered. Alexander grabbed her hand. The panic room. Move. But before they could take a step, the kitchen door exploded inward. Men in tactical gear flooded in, laser sights creating a web of red dots across their chests. Nobody moves, a familiar voice said from behind the armed men. Victor Hale stepped into view, impeccably dressed as always, his smile cold and satisfied. Hello, Amara. Or should I say, Maya? We have so much to catch up on. Eleanor's triumphant expression faded as one of the men grabbed her phone and crushed it under his boot. What are you doing? She protested. I helped you. Victor didn't even look at her. Yes, you did. How unfortunate for you. The implications of his words sank in, and Eleanor's face went white. She had thought she was playing a game. She had no idea she'd just entered a war. 10 years, Victor said, his attention fully on Maya. You cost me 10 years of rebuilding, hundreds of millions in lost revenue, and several very valuable associates who are now serving life sentences. Did you really think you could hide forever? I wasn't hiding, Maya said, lifting her chin. I was waiting. For what? For you to get sloppy, comfortable, overconfident. She smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. For you to come here, to Alexander's house, where every room has security cameras, where everything is being recorded and streamed to off-site servers, where the FBI has been monitoring for the last 3 months, hoping you'd make exactly this mistake. Victor's smile faltered. In the distance, they could hear sirens. Many sirens, growing closer. You're lying. Am I? Maya pulled out a small device from her pocket, a federal witness panic button. It was already activated, had been from the moment Victor entered the house. Did you really think I'd stay anywhere without protection? That I'd put Alexander at risk without a contingency plan? The sirens were louder now. Someone outside shouted through a megaphone. This is the FBI. The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands visible. Victor's men looked to him for orders, but his eyes never left Maya's face. This isn't over. Yes, Maya said quietly. It is. The sound of helicopters joined the sirens. Red and blue lights flooded through the windows. Victor Hale, after 10 years of evading justice, had finally walked into a trap. Alexander moved to stand beside Maya, his hand finding hers. You planned this. All of it. Not all of it, she admitted, squeezing his hand. I didn't plan on you. On caring what happened to you. That complicated everything. Good, he said softly. The best things always do. As federal agents flooded the house and Victor was led away in handcuffs, Eleanor sobbing as she was arrested as an accessory, Maya allowed herself to lean into Alexander's solid presence. For the first time in 10 years, she wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She was home. The FBI had cleared the mansion by sunset, leaving behind yellow tape and the echo of questions that would need answering. Alexander found Maya in his study, standing before the damaged portrait, her fingers hovering over the slashed canvas without quite touching it. Tell me your real name, he said quietly from the doorway. She didn't turn around. After a long silence, she replied, I've had to be more than one person to stay alive. Maya is as real as any name I've carried. But it wasn't your first. No. She finally faced him, exhaustion etched in every line of her body. My mother named me Zara Williams. But that girl died in foster care when she was 15. Every name since then has been armor. Alexander moved into the room, maintaining careful distance as if approaching a wounded animal. The night in Morocco. Tell me what really happened. Maya walked to the window, looking out at the Pacific darkening under storm clouds. You remember the rooftop in Tangier. The broken radio in the safe house. The unmarked SUV that came out of nowhere. I remember thinking we were going to die. You should have. She turned to face him. Victor's men had orders to eliminate everyone in that building. You were never supposed to be there. Your meeting had been moved, but nobody told you. When the shooting started, I had a choice. Save myself or save the stranger who'd stumbled into a federal operation. So you chose me. I guided you to that alley with the seawall ladder. You were so trusting, following a complete stranger through gunfire. A sad smile crossed her face. You shoved this into my hand. She pulled out the bracelet from her pocket and said, if we survive this, I'll find you. And then you vanished. My handlers were furious. I'd compromised the operation by saving a civilian. They relocated me immediately, told everyone I'd died in the crossfire. It was cleaner that way. Alexander stepped closer, his voice rough with emotion. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Knowing someone died saving me. I didn't die. I just stopped existing in any way that mattered. The 35 million I spent searching, you weren't just searching, Alexander. Maya's voice grew harder. Every inquiry you made, every investigator you hired, they drew Victor's attention. Your search became my shield. As long as his. People were chasing false leads in Brazil and Paris. They weren't looking for a woman hiding in plain sight. You used my obsession to protect yourself. Yes. She met his gaze without flinching. I monitored every search, every lead. When you got too close to finding something real, I'd plant false information to send you in another direction. That woman in Chicago? I paid her to be seen wearing a similar scarf. The hospital worker in Sacramento? Another decoy. Alexander's jaw clenched. You've been playing me for years. I've been surviving. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you've been watching me tear myself apart looking for you while you move the pieces around like some chess game. You want to talk about games? Maya's composure finally cracked. Let's talk about the billionaire who never once looked at his maid until she became a mystery to solve. 6 months, Alexander. 6 months I cleaned your house, served your meals, organized your life, and you looked through me like I was furniture. He flinched. That's not. It's exactly true. The only reason you see me now is because I'm the ghost you've been chasing. If I'd just been Maya Carter, just been your maid, would you have ever really seen me? The question hung between them. Heavy with uncomfortable truth, Alexander moved to his desk, pulling out a file Marcus had left. Victor's been using shell companies to funnel money through my suppliers. Some of these contracts go back years. You knew about this. I suspected. It's why I eventually came here. I needed to get close enough to gather evidence without raising suspicions. So everything, working here, getting close to me, it was all part of some federal operation. No. Maya's voice softened. The FBI didn't know I was here. They thought I was in Portland under a different identity. Coming here, that was my choice. What? She was quiet for a moment. Then, because after 10 years of running, I was tired. And because part of me. She stopped, shaking her head. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me. Before she could respond, Alexander's phone buzzed. Patricia's name appeared with an urgent message. Board emergency meeting in 20 minutes. The news broke. Everything's falling apart. He looked at Maya. This conversation isn't over. Yes, she said quietly, it is. Victor's arrested. My job is done. There's no reason for me to stay. No reason. Alexander stared at her in disbelief. After everything, especially after everything. She moved toward the door. Your board is waiting. You should go. The boardroom was in chaos when Alexander arrived. News of Victor Hale's arrest at the Price Mansion was already trending on social media, and the company's stock had dropped 12% in after-hours trading. This is a disaster, Richard Steinberg declared, his face red with anger. Federal agents raiding our CEO's home? Our connection to an international criminal. There is no connection, Alexander said firmly. Victor Hale infiltrated our supply chain without our knowledge. We're victims, not accomplices. The market doesn't care about distinctions, another board member interjected. The headlines are devastating. Billionaire's secret obsession leads to criminal takedown. Price Industries linked to trafficking ring. We need damage control immediately. What we need, Alexander said, his voice cutting through the panic, is transparency. Full cooperation with federal investigators. complete audit of all supplier contracts. And most importantly, we need to protect the witness who risked everything to expose this. The maid. Richard's tone was dismissive. She's the FBI's problem now. Her name is Maya Carter, and she's under my protection. Your protection? Richard laughed bitterly. You've spent $35 million of your own money chasing this woman, and now she's brought a criminal empire to our doorstep. If anything, we should be discussing your fitness to continue as CEO. The room went silent. Alexander looked around the table at people he'd worked with for years, built an empire alongside, and saw calculation in their eyes. Then let's discuss it, he said evenly. But understand this. If I walk, I take my patents with me. Every innovation, every breakthrough that built this company came from my mind. The contracts are clear on that point. You wouldn't dare try me. His phone rang. Marcus Whitmore's name appeared on the screen. Alexander, we have a problem. Someone leaked Maya's location to the press. There are news vans pulling up to the mansion. And worse, Victor's lawyer is claiming entrapment, saying Maya illegally gathered evidence. If this gets thrown out on a technicality, Alexander stood. Meeting adjourned. We'll reconvene tomorrow. You can't just watch me. He left the boardroom in stunned silence and raced back to the mansion. The driveway was already clogged with news vans, reporters shouting questions as his car pushed through. Inside, he found Maya in her small room off the kitchen, quickly packing her few belongings. You can't leave, he said. It's not safe. It's never safe, she replied, not looking at him. That's the point. I stay in one place too long, people get hurt. People are already hurt. You're already exposed. Running now won't change that. She zipped her bag closed. Maybe not, but staying will only make it worse. For both of us. I don't care about worse. You should. She finally met his eyes. Your board wants you out. Your stock is crashing. Your reputation, my reputation was built on a lie. His voice was raw. Everything I achieved after Morocco, every success, was because you saved my life. And I never even knew your real name. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. They stared at each other across the small room, years of searching and hiding compressed into this moment that a knock interrupted them. FBI Special Agent Diana Foster stood in the doorway, her expression grim. Miss Carter, we need to move you to a safe house. Victor's lawyer is good, too good. There's a chance he could get bail, and if he does, he'll come for me, Maya finished. I know. Not just you. Agent Foster's gaze included Alexander. Anyone connected to you is a potential target. Mr. Price, we recommend you consider protective custody as well. I'm not hiding, Alexander said firmly. Then you're a fool, Maya said sharply. Victor doesn't forgive, and he doesn't forget. You're on his list now, just for helping me. Then we face him together. This isn't a movie, Alexander. There's no heroic ending where the lights went out, everyone froze. In the darkness, they heard the generator kick in, emergency lighting casting eerie shadows. Agent Foster's radio crackled to life. Perimeter breach. Southeast corner. Multiple subjects approaching. He made bail, Foster said grimly. Somehow, Victor made bail. The safe house compromise lasted exactly 3 hours. Maya sat in a nondescript FBI facility in Riverside, watching the news coverage on her phone while Agent Foster coordinated with her team. Alexander had refused protection, returning to his mansion despite Maya's protests. The headlines were brutal. Billionaire's obsession exposed. The maid who wasn't. Price Industries stock plummets amid criminal investigation. From mansion to manhunt. The woman worth $35 million. Then came the blog post that changed everything. FinanceGossip.com ran an exclusive. Billionaire Price duped by housemaid honey trap. Sources say federal witness planted evidence. The article used carefully edited audio, Eleanor's recordings, somehow recovered and manipulated, to make it sound like Maya had orchestrated everything for money. Maya's phone rang. Alexander's voice was strained. Did you see? I saw. The board called an emergency vote. They're trying to force me out. Stock dropped another 20% at market open. Alexander, I'm sorry, don't. Just don't. We need to fix this. There is no fixing this. This is what Victor does. He destroys everything around his targets until they have nowhere left to run. A commotion outside made Maya look up. Through the window, she could see FBI agents running, Radios crackling with urgent chatter, Foster burst into the room. The mansion's been hit. Security breach. Someone broke in. Maya's blood went cold. Alexander. He's safe. Security got him to the panic room. But Maya, they destroyed everything. His study, the portrait, all his personal files. And they left a message. Foster held up her phone, showing a photo from the scene. Written in red paint across the mansion's marble floor. You cost me 10 years. You'll pay with everything. We need to move you, Foster said urgently. If they hit the mansion, they know. The window exploded. Maya hit the floor as glass showered the room. Smoke grenades followed, filling the space with thick gray clouds. She heard Foster shouting, calling for backup, but the words were lost in the chaos. Strong hands grabbed her, dragging her toward the door. Not FBI. She knew the grip, the efficiency. Victor's men. She fought, landing an elbow that earned a grunt of pain, but there were too many. Then, suddenly, the hands released her. Through the smoke, she saw Alexander, wielding a fire extinguisher. Like a club, he'd come for her, against all reason, against all safety. Move, he shouted, pulling her toward the exit. They ran through the facility's corridors, emergency lights flashing, agents converging from all directions. Behind them, she could hear pursuit. Boots on linoleum, barked orders in multiple languages. A black SUV screeched to a halt at the exit. Marcus Whitmore behind the wheel. Get in. They dove into the vehicle as bullets sparked off the armored exterior. Marcus floored it, tires screaming as they tore away from the facility. How did you? Maya started. Alexander called me when the mansion was hit. Marcus said, taking a corner at dangerous speed. Said if Victor was making his move, you'd be next. Seems he was right. You shouldn't have come, Maya told Alexander. Either of you. Now you're both targets. We already were, Alexander said grimly. The moment Victor knew I was connected to you, we were all dead unless we stopped him. His phone rang. Patricia's panicked voice filled the car through Bluetooth. Mr. Price, the board, they've called a press conference. They're announcing your removal as CEO, effective immediately. They're saying you endangered the company with your personal vendetta. Let them, Alexander said. Patricia, I need you to do something for me. In my personal safe, combination March 15th, 78, there's a red folder. Take it to the FBI. Don't let anyone else see it. Sir, it contains every suspicious transaction I've flagged over the years. Things that didn't add up, but I couldn't prove. If Victor infiltrated our company, that folder shows how. Marcus took another hard turn, checking mirrors constantly. We've got a tail. 2 cars, possibly 3. Where are we going? Maya asked. The only place Victor won't expect, Alexander said. We're going public. Completely, totally public. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to the local news station. Reporters were already gathered, having been tipped off by Alexander's emergency call. As they stepped out of the SUV, cameras immediately focused on them. Mr. Price, is it true you've been removed as CEO? Ms. Carter, are you really a federal witness? What's your connection to Victor Hale? Alexander raised his hand for silence. When the crowd quieted, he spoke clearly and directly. My name is Alexander Price. 10 years ago, this woman saved my life in Morocco during a terrorist attack. I've spent the decade since then and $35 million trying to find her. To thank her. What I didn't know was that she was a federal witness in hiding, and that the attack in Morocco was actually an attempt to silence her testimony against Victor Hale. The reporters erupted with questions, but Alexander continued. Victor Hale has infiltrated multiple corporations, including mine, to launder money from human trafficking operations. The FBI has the evidence. But right now, he's trying to silence the witnesses before trial. He's destroyed my home, attacked federal agents, and attempted to kidnap Ms. Carter. We're here, in public, because visibility is our only protection. Are you admitting to harboring a federal witness? A reporter shouted. I'm admitting to hiring a housekeeper named Maya Carter 6 months ago. I had no knowledge of her past until yesterday when Victor Hale's men invaded my home. Maya stepped forward. My name is Maya Carter, formerly Zara Williams. I witnessed Victor Hale's crimes 10 years ago and have been in hiding ever since. The FBI can confirm my status as a protected witness. What Mr. Price spent searching for me, $35 million. That money inadvertently kept me safe by misdirecting Victor's search efforts. Mr. Price is a victim in this, not a conspirator. A reporter pushed forward. Miss Carter, why did you choose to work in Mr. Price's home? Maya glanced at Alexander, then back at the cameras. Because after 10 years of running, I wanted to stop being a ghost. I wanted to make sure the man whose life got destroyed because of me was okay. I didn't intend for any of this to happen. Mr. Price, your board has removed you as CEO. What's your response? My response is that I'd rather lose everything than let Victor Hale win. The board can have the company, but they can't have my silence. Suddenly, phones throughout the crowd began buzzing. Breaking news alerts. A reporter looked up, shocked. Victor Hale's been rearrested. Federal prosecutors have filed new charges based on evidence from your personal files, Mr. Price. Alexander smiled grimly. Patricia works fast. The crowd surged forward with more questions, but FBI vehicles were already arriving. Agent Foster stepped out, looking haggard but relieved. Ms. Carter, Mr. Price, we need to get you both to secure locations. Victor's been arrested, but his network is still active. As they were led to separate vehicles, Maya caught Alexander's arm. You gave up everything. Your company, your reputation? No, he said firmly. I gave up illusions. The company was built on compromised foundations if Victor could infiltrate it so easily. And my reputation? It was based on a lie that I was some self-made genius who survived on his own merit. The truth is, I survived because a brave woman saved me. It's time everyone knew that. The board will destroy you. Let them try. I still hold the patents. I can build again, better this time. Cleaner. Agent Foster interrupted. We need to go? Now. As Maya was guided to one vehicle and Alexander to another, he called out, This isn't over. No, she agreed quietly. It's not. The news cycle exploded. Every major outlet carried the story of the billionaire who gave up everything to protect a witness. Financial networks analyzed the collapse of Price Industries stock, while crime reporters dug into Victor Hale's network. But the human interest angle dominated. The decades-long search, the hidden identity, the dramatic reunion. Eleanor Hartley, in federal custody, tried to cut a deal by revealing she'd been paid by Victor to spy on the household for months. Her testimony inadvertently confirmed Maya's story, destroying Victor's entrapment defense. That night, in separate FBI safe houses, Maya and Alexander watched the coverage. The media was calling it the story of the year. Publishers were already reaching out about book deals. Hollywood producers were circling, but in her temporary room, Maya wasn't thinking about fame or money. She was thinking about Alexander's face when he'd realized she'd been manipulating his search all along. The hurt beneath the understanding. The betrayal mixed with relief. She pulled out the bracelet, running her fingers over the Arabic inscription. Until we meet again. They had met again. But at what cost? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She tensed, then relaxed as she read. The portrait can be restored. The slashes weren't as deep as they looked. Thought you should know. She typed back. Some damage can't be fixed. The response was immediate. No. But it can be transformed into something more honest. Scars and all. Meanwhile, Alexander stood at his safe house window, looking out at city lights. His phone showed missed calls from board members, former friends, business associates distancing themselves from the scandal. Price Industries stock had stabilized, but at half its former value. His removal as CEO was official. Marcus Whitmore sat across from him, reviewing damage assessments. You could fight this, Marcus said. The board's action might not hold up in court. No, they're right. I lost focus. I put the company at risk. You saved a woman's life. I tried to. Seems she was pretty good at saving herself. Alexander's smile was rueful. All those years searching, and she was managing just fine without me. Was she? Because from what I saw, she came to your house. She stayed when she could have run. That means something. Alexander's phone buzzed. FBI update. Victor's bail had been revoked based on the new evidence. He would remain in custody until trial. The immediate danger had passed, but the future remained uncertain. Alexander had lost his company, his reputation was in shambles, and the woman he'd searched for was still more ghost than real. Yet for the first time in 10 years, he felt something like peace. The search was over. Now came the harder part, figuring out what came next. The press conference Alexander held 3 weeks after Victor's arrest was unlike anything the financial media had seen. Standing in a modest, rented conference room rather than Price Industries' gleaming boardroom, he faced the cameras without a PR team, without prepared remarks, without the armor of corporate speak. "I built an empire on a lie," he began, his voice steady but raw. "Not a lie of commission, but one of omission. For 10 years, I've presented myself as a self-made success story, a brilliant entrepreneur who survived a terrorist attack through his own resourcefulness. The truth is, I survived because a woman I didn't know risked her life to save mine. And then I spent the next decade failing to see the people around me who made my success possible." The reporters were silent, sensing something unprecedented was happening. "I've discovered that my company was infiltrated by criminal elements because I was too focused on my own obsession to notice. I missed the fraud happening under my nose because I was spending $35 million chasing a ghost. But more than that, I missed it because I never really looked at the people who worked for me. They were invisible to me, the cleaning staff, the drivers, the assistants who kept my life running smoothly. I saw them as functions, not people." He paused, looking directly into the primary camera. "The woman I searched for was in my house for 6 months. She cleaned my home, served my meals, and I looked through her like she was furniture. It took a crisis for me to finally see her, really see her. And if I could miss someone that important when she was right in front of me, what else have I been blind to?" A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Price, are you accepting responsibility for the criminal infiltration of your company?" "I'm accepting responsibility for creating a culture where looking away was easier than looking closely, where enormous red flags were ignored because the numbers looked good, where people like Victor Hale could operate because we valued profits over principles." "What about Price Industries? The board says you're trying to sabotage the company out of spite." "The board is wrong. I've provided federal investigators with full access to all records, including my private files documenting suspicious transactions going back years. If that damages the company's value, so be it. The truth is more important than stock prices." "And Miss Carter? What's your relationship with her now?" Alexander's composed mask slipped slightly. "That's not for me to define. I spent 10 years searching for someone who didn't want to be found. Now I need to learn to see the person who's actually there, not the fantasy I created." After the conference, Alexander drove to a small community center in Inglewood where Maya had been volunteering while waiting for the trial. He found her teaching computer skills to a group of teenagers, including one particular student who caught his attention, a young black girl named Ari with intelligent eyes and careful watchfulness that reminded him of Maya. Maya saw him in the doorway, but continued her lesson, professional and focused. Only after the students filed out did she acknowledge him. "That was quite a press conference," she said, shutting down computers. "I meant every word." "I know. That's what makes it dangerous." She turned to face him. "You just painted a target on your back. Every employee who feels wronged, every competitor who wants to take advantage, they'll come after you now. Let them. I'm tired of hiding behind corporate shields." Ari reappeared in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Ms. Maya?" "I forgot my O." She noticed Alexander, her expression becoming guarded. "Ari, this is Mr. Price." Maya introduced them carefully. "Alexander, this is Ari. She's been my student for 2 years." 2 years. Alexander looked between them. "But you've only been in LA for—" "I've been in LA for 3 years, Maya corrected. "I just only worked for you for 6 months. Ari's been with me through several relocations." Understanding dawned on Alexander's face. This teenager was part of Maya's hidden life, someone she'd been protecting even while protecting herself. "Are you the man she's been hiding from, or the one she's trying to save?" Ari asked bluntly, studying Alexander with unsettling intensity. "Both," Alexander answered honestly. "I'm trying to be the second." Ari looked to Maya, who nodded slightly. Some silent communication passed between them before Ari grabbed her forgotten notebook and left. "You've been taking care of her," Alexander said. It wasn't a question. "She aged out of foster care with nowhere to go. Reminded me of myself at that age." Maya's voice softened. "I couldn't save everyone, but I could save her. While running from Victor, while hiding from the FBI, while working as my maid. We all have our priorities." Alexander's phone buzzed. Patricia's text was urgent, Board injunction filed. They're trying to freeze your patent rights. Need you here now. He showed Maya the message. I have to go. Of course you do. There was no bitterness in her tone, just resignation. Come with me. Alexander, not as my maid. Not as a witness. Just come with me. Let me show you who I'm trying to become. She hesitated, then grabbed her jacket. 1 hour. That's all. The Price Industries boardroom was a battlefield when they arrived. Richard Steinberg led the charge, backed by a phalanx of lawyers. You can't transfer patent rights to a trust without board approval, Richard declared. We'll fight this in court for years if necessary. Then you'll lose, Alexander said calmly. My contract is clear. Personal innovations remain my intellectual property, and I'm not transferring them to just any trust. He pulled up documents on the conference room screen. The Price Foundation for Witness Protection and Victim Support, funded with $35 million, the exact amount I spent searching. For Maya, the patents will generate licensing fees that fund protection for people like her, education for kids like Ari, and support for families destroyed by criminals like Victor Hale. This is insane, another board member protested. You're giving away billions in future revenue. No, I'm investing it in something that matters. Price Industries can license the patents at fair market rate, but the profits go to people who need protection, not shareholders who are already wealthy. And what about you? Richard demanded. What do you get? Alexander glanced at Maya, who was watching from the doorway. I get to sleep at night knowing I finally see clearly. The room erupted in arguments, but Alexander walked out, leaving his lawyers to handle the details. In the hallway, Maya was waiting. $35 million, she said quietly. You're really giving it all away? It was never mine. I spent it trying to find you. Seems right it should go toward protecting others like you. And if I don't want that responsibility, then don't take it. The foundation will run with or without your involvement. But I'm hoping you'll help guide it. You know better than anyone what witnesses really need. Before she could respond, Agent Foster appeared with 2 federal marshals. Ms. Carter, we need to prep for tomorrow. Victor's lawyer is going to come at you hard. The trial preparation was brutal. Victor's defense team had hired the best criminal lawyer money could buy, and their strategy was clear. Paint Maya as a manipulative opportunist who had entrapped both Victor and Alexander for personal gain. They'll bring up every identity you've used, the prosecutor warned. Every lie you told to survive. They'll make you sound like a professional con artist. Let them, Maya said firmly. I know who I am. But that night, alone in her hotel room under federal protection, she wasn't so sure. She looked at the clothes laid out for court, conservative, respectable, designed to make her look trustworthy. Another costume for another role. Her phone buzzed. Alexander, whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know, I see you. Not Amara, not the ghost I chased, not the maid. You, Zara Williams, who became Maya Carter, who saved lives and protected children and survived the impossible. She typed back, what if that person isn't worth seeing? His response was immediate. Then I need better glasses. Despite herself, she smiled. The next morning, Victor Hale entered the courtroom in an expensive suit, his confidence unshaken despite the shackles. He looked directly at Maya as he passed, his smile cold and promising retribution. Alexander sat in the gallery's front row, having refused FBI suggestions to stay away. Behind him sat unexpected supporters, Patricia, Marcus, even Sarah the head housekeeper. And surprisingly, Daniel Morrison, Alexander's old friend who'd been with them in Morocco. Ms. Carter, Victor's lawyer began, his voice dripping condescension. Or should I say Ms. Williams? Or perhaps Amara. You've had so many names, it's hard to keep track. My legal name is Maya Carter, she replied evenly. But that's not the name you used when you infiltrated Mr. Price's household, is it? You applied under false pretenses, with fabricated references. I applied for a job I was qualified to do, and I did it well, while spying on Mr. Price, while manipulating his emotions, while cleaning his house and staying invisible, as he preferred his staff to be. The lawyer shifted tactics. You claim Victor Hale ordered your death in Morocco. But isn't it true you were there illegally surveilling his legitimate business operations? I was there as a federal witness documenting human trafficking, according to you. But the original FBI handlers from that operation are conveniently deceased, aren't they? Maya's jaw tightened. They were killed in a car accident 3 years ago, unrelated to this case. How convenient. So we only have your word about what happened in Morocco. No. Alexander's voice rang out from the gallery. You have mine too. The judge frowned. Mr. Price, you're not a witness in this proceeding. I'd like to be, Your Honor. I was there in Morocco. I can testify to what happened. The courtroom buzzed with surprise. The prosecutor quickly stood. Your Honor, Mr. Price is on our witness list for tomorrow. Then he'll testify tomorrow, the judge ruled. Continue, counselor. But the defense lawyer had lost momentum. Maya held her composure through hours of brutal questioning, never wavering from her truth. When court recessed, she was exhausted but unbroken. Outside the courthouse, protesters had gathered. Some supported her, holding signs reading "Courage Under Fire" and "Heroes Don't Always Wear Capes." Others, Price Industries shareholders, blamed her for their losses. Alexander appeared at her side, ignoring his own lawyer's advice to maintain distance. You don't have to do this, Maya said quietly as cameras clicked around them. Yes, I do. I spent 10 years looking for you. The least I can do is stand beside you now that I've found you, even if it costs you everything. I've already lost everything that didn't matter. I'm not losing this too. That evening, while Maya prepared for another day of testimony with the federal prosecutors, Alexander met with an unexpected visitor. Ari sat across from him in a diner, her expression serious beyond her years. Maya doesn't trust easily, she said without preamble. The last person she trusted before me sold her. Location to Victor for $50,000. I'm not going to betray her. You already did. You spent 6 months not seeing her when she was right there. You think that didn't hurt? You think she didn't wonder every day if she mattered so little that you could look through her like glass? Alexander absorbed the words like physical blows. You're right. I know I am. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to learn to see. Really see. Not just her, but everyone I've been blind to. Ari studied him for a long moment. She kept newspaper clippings, you know. Every article about your success. She'd say she was just monitoring the situation, but I knew better. She cared what happened. To you. And now she's scared you care more about the mystery than the woman. How do I prove otherwise? You don't prove it. You just live it. Every day? Without fanfare. Ari stood to leave, then paused. The trial ends this week. When it's over, she's planning to disappear again. New name, new city, new life. If you want to stop her, you better figure out what you're offering that's better than safety. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon after 3 days of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Victor Hale would spend the rest of his life in federal prison, his empire dismantled, his assets seized. The courtroom erupted in celebration from the prosecution's side, but Maya sat silent, unable to process that her decade of running was finally over. Alexander found her on the courthouse steps an hour later, after the crowds had dispersed and the media had gotten their sound bites. She was sitting alone, staring at the city skyline. It's over, he said, sitting beside her. Is it? She turned to look at him. Your company is in chaos. Your reputation is destroyed. You've lost everything because of me. I lost everything because I built it on shaky foundations. You just revealed the cracks that were already there. The board is suing you. Let them. My lawyers tell me they don't have a case. The patents are mine, and the foundation is already operational. First grant goes out next week. Full scholarship for Ari to attend USC's computer science program. Maya's eyes widened. You did that. The foundation board did. Though I may have suggested her as a candidate. He paused. She told me you're planning to leave again. It's what I do. Start fresh where no one knows my history. Where you could stay and build something where people know exactly who you are. Alexander, I'm not asking for anything more than a chance. A real chance. Not as the billionaire and the maid. Not as the searcher and the lost. But as two people who've seen each other at our worst and are still here. Before Maya could respond, her phone rang. Agent Foster's name appeared. Maya, you need to see this. Someone leaked the full FBI file on Victor's operations. Every victim, every crime, every detail. The media is going insane, but more importantly, you're not the only witness anymore. Dozens of victims are coming forward. Maya looked at Alexander, who was trying and failing to appear innocent. You didn't. I might have suggested to Patricia. that certain documents accidentally left on my desk could be photographed and shared with interested journalists. Hypothetically, that's illegal. Proving it would require admitting the FBI left classified documents unsecured. Seems unlikely they'll pursue it. Despite everything, Maya laughed. You're learning to be devious. I had a good teacher. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Maya asked, what will you do now? Without the company. Start over. Build something better. Something transparent from the ground up. He looked at her. I was hoping you might help. I'm not a businesswoman. No, but you know how to see what others miss. You know how to protect the vulnerable. That's the kind of vision I need. And if I say no, then I'll respect that. But I'll keep the offer open. Maya stood, brushing off her clothes. I need time to figure out who I am when I'm not running. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. 6 weeks later, the mansion had been sold to cover legal costs and settlements. Alexander now lived in a modest apartment in Marina Del Rey, his life stripped down to essentials. He was meeting with potential investors for his new venture, a security company focused on protecting witnesses and vulnerable populations, when Maya walked in. She looked different. Not disguised or hidden, but genuinely relaxed. Her hair was styled differently. She wore clothes that fit her personality rather than a role, and most importantly, she moved like someone who no longer expected danger around every corner. Am I interrupting? She asked. The investors looked curious, but Alexander stood immediately. Gentlemen, can we reschedule? Something important has come up. After they left, looking confused but intrigued, Alexander turned to Maya. You look good, he said simply. I feel good. Free. It's strange. She moved to the window, looking out at the marina. I've been thinking about your offer. And I want to accept, but with conditions. Name them. First, I'm not your employee. If we do this, we're partners. Equal stake, equal say. Agreed. Second, the foundation runs parallel to the business. Profits from the security company fund the foundation's work, already in the business plan. Third, she turned to face him, we keep things professional. Whatever this is between us, it can't interfere with the work. Alexander stepped closer. And if it doesn't interfere, then we see where it goes. Slowly, honestly, with no more secrets. No more secrets, he agreed. They shook hands, formal and professional, but held on a moment longer than necessary. The news of their partnership sparked another media frenzy, but this time they faced it together. The photo that went viral showed them at the foundation's first major fundraiser, not as the billionaire and the maid, but as two equals working towards something meaningful. Richard Steinberg attended, surprisingly, approaching them during the cocktail hour. I owe you an apology, he said stiffly. The forensic audit of Price Industries revealed the depth of Victor's infiltration. If you hadn't exposed it, we'd have been accessories to money laundering within 2 years. The company, Alexander asked. Surviving. Restructuring. We've implemented every transparency measure you recommended. Richard paused. The board wanted me to ask, would you consider returning as a consultant? Alexander looked at Maya, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Send me the terms. We'll review them. Ms. Carter and I are partners now. Any decision involves both of us. Richard's surprise was evident, but he recovered quickly. Of course, I'll have legal send the proposal. As Richard walked away, Maya smiled. That must have been satisfying. Less than I expected. Turns out revenge isn't as sweet as redemption. The foundation's first major success came 3 months later. A witness in another trafficking case, terrified and alone, was provided safe housing, legal support, and job training. The woman, Teresa, sent a handwritten thank you note that Maya framed and hung in their office. This is what matters, she said, touching the frame. Not the money or the recognition. This, I know, Alexander said, and she could tell he meant it. Their relationship evolved slowly, carefully. Coffee meetings became lunches, lunches became dinners, and eventually, dinners became breakfast. But they never rushed, never pushed past what felt natural, and right at a year after Victor's conviction, they stood in Alexander's old study in the mansion, now owned by a tech entrepreneur who'd invited them to see something. The restored portrait hung on the wall, but it had been transformed. The artist had incorporated the slashes into the work, turning them into rays of light that seemed to illuminate the subject's face. It's beautiful, Maya said softly. It's honest, Alexander corrected. Scars and all. The new owner, a young black woman who'd built her fortune in biotech, smiled. When I bought the house, this came with it. The previous owner said it belonged here. I researched the story, your story. I wanted you to know it's being preserved. Not as a monument to obsession, but as a reminder that seeing people, really seeing them, can change everything. As they left the mansion for the last time, Maya took Alexander's hand. Any regrets? She asked. Only one. That it took me so long to see what was right in front of me. We both had our blind spots. Not anymore. No, she said firmly. Not anymore. The security company thrived, the foundation expanded, and their partnership, both professional and personal, deepened into something neither had expected but both had needed. At the company's second anniversary celebration, Alexander raised a toast to the assembled employees and foundation recipients. 2 years ago, I stood in a boardroom and admitted I had been blind to the people who made my success possible. Today, I stand here grateful for the chance to see clearly, to see the security guards who protect others as they once needed protection themselves, to see the counselors who guide witnesses through their fear because they've walked that path, to see the administrators who pour their hearts into every case because they know what it's like to need help and not receive it. He found Maya in the crowd, her eyes glistening. Most of all, I'm grateful for the woman who taught me that being seen, truly seen, isn't about being found. It's about being recognized for who you really are, scars and all. The room erupted in applause, but Alexander only had eyes for Maya as she made her way to the podium. My turn, she said, taking the microphone. I spent 10 years running from shadows, hiding in plain sight, becoming invisible to survive. But invisibility is its own kind of prison. It took a man spending $35 million to find me for me to realize I was worth being found. But more than that, it took him losing everything to finally see me for me to understand that I was worth being seen. She looked directly at Alexander. We started as strangers in Morocco, became hunter and hunted for a decade, then employer and employee for 6 months. Today, we're partners in every sense of the word. And tomorrow, she smiled. Tomorrow, we continue building something worth seeing. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, they stood on the balcony overlooking the city lights. Ari, now in her junior year at USC, joined them. You two did good, she said simply. Really good. We had help, Maya said, putting an arm around the young woman who'd become like a daughter to her. Speaking of help, Ari said with a grin, I've been talking to some classmates about internships. You might be getting some applications soon. Send them all, Alexander said. We'll interview everyone, even if they don't have perfect resumes. Especially then, the best people often have the most interesting gaps in their histories. As Ari went back inside, Maya leaned against Alexander, finally allowing herself the vulnerability of depending on someone else. You know what the strangest part is, she said. What? I'm not afraid anymore. For the first time in over a decade, I'm not looking over my shoulder. Good, because I want you looking forward. We have a lot to build together. She turned in his arms, studying his face in the soft light. You really see me now, don't you? Every beautiful, complicated, courageous inch of you. And you're not disappointed it's just me? Not the mystery woman you searched for. Maya, you were never just anything. You were always everything. It just took me too long to see it. She kissed him then, soft and sure, a promise of all the tomorrows they'd build together. Inside there, phones buzzed simultaneously. A news alert. Price Carter Security wins federal contract for witness protection services. Their company would now officially protect others like Maya had once been. Invisible, vulnerable, but absolutely worth saving. Ready for this? Alexander asked. I've been ready my whole life, Maya replied. I just didn't know it until now. As they walked back inside together, the portrait in the mansion across the city caught the moonlight through the window, the scars in the canvas creating patterns of light and shadow that made the subject seem to smile. The ghost was gone, the chase was over, but the story, their real story, was just beginning to eye in her pocket. Maya's phone showed one final text, this one. From Agent Foster. Saw the news about the contract. Couldn't have gone to better people. Thank you for showing us that witnesses aren't just cases to manage. They're people to see. Maya showed it to Alexander, who smiled and typed back from her phone. We're all worth seeing. It just takes the right eyes. And finally, after years of running and searching, hiding and seeking, they both understood the truth. Being seen wasn't about being perfect or mysterious or valuable. It was about being human, vulnerable, and real. And in each other's eyes, they were exactly that, fully, completely, finally seen to so I ask you, how many invisible people in your own life are you looking through right now? And what extraordinary stories might you discover if you finally stop to truly see them? If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales that remind us that sometimes the most valuable treasures aren't hidden in distant places. They're standing right beside us, waiting to be seen.